Daryl Recommends Podcast is a podcast recommending series and shouldn't be mistaken as a reviewing one. Opinions about each show are my own and should not reflect what each podcast has to offer. Content warnings aside, I believe if any recommendation in my series interests you, you should give it a chance, regardless of how I personally feel about the show.
Is that it? Is it on?
Wait, hang on a second. Wait. Yep, it's on. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, wait, should we start this conversation again, or what?
No, let's just carry on.
This doesn't sound very formal to me.
Well, it isn't formal. It's private. I thought that was the point. What?
I want you to take this seriously, okay?
I do. I am.
I need you to.
I promise you, I'm taking this seriously. Come on, you asked me to record it. I went and got your dictaphone. Go ahead, please.
How much do you know about cryonic preservation?
Cryonic preservation.
The preservation of human beings at extreme low temperature.
You mean like Walt Disney?
I swear to God, if you say anything about Walt Disney's frozen fucking head, I'm hanging up this phone right now.
Unlikely friends, Warren Godby and Gordon Porlock find themselves caught up in a mystery leading them to Overhead Industries' Red Valley to find truth behind the facility's experiments with hypersleep. Red Valley is a sci-fi mystery podcast made by Jonathan Williams and Alan Mandel of Orpheus Studio Productions. Red Valley runs currently for 2 seasons, with a couple of mini-seasons and a third final season on the way. The show dwells into the past and psyche of its characters and into some not-so-very-ethical science experiments. I have not listened to a podcast since the Magnus Archives that I have regretted so much not listening to earlier than this podcast. Like, this is the only podcast that has ever done that to me, even for a couple of other shows that I rave on about because I adore them, like Malevolent and the Siltverses. Like, and even though Gods of Appalachia, I gotten into those shows early enough that I personally feel like I got in at a good spot, just enough to experience the series as it's coming out. Red Valley, it's about to have its last season. The first 2 seasons are short. They're like both less than 10 episodes. The last one I read is going to be like 13 episodes. And I'm like, I want a good, nice show that like knows how to start, knows how to complete its middle, knows how to end, and end on a good note. And I could wait 44 years for the final season if I need to. But I wish there was more of this show. I could listen to it a lot. This show was not one I expected to like as much as I did, but I ended up loving it a whole lot listening to it. And it's just like one of those like incredibly nice surprises when you find a show that you weren't expecting much from just because you don't know what you're getting into, only to like be blown away with how great it is. And I love that. I love it when a podcast manages to do that, and this is definitely one of those ones that have blown my expectations were just like, it's gonna be a show, I've heard about it, I heard it's good, let's see where it goes. And then I'm like, oh my god, this show is amazing, I love this show, I need more people to like this show, I need more people to talk about the show with. The show is so good. And like, this is, I don't know if other people have had it. I think maybe Brimstone Valley Mall has come close to it, but this is also the only podcast where I was listening to it, and it made me feel a lot like I was listening to a TV show, rather than like listening to an audio drama. Like with a lot of audio dramas, and like and sometimes with this one as well, like I'm aware I'm listening to an audio drama, but the way the characters casually interact with each other, kind of like they're like, it feels like they're in a room with each other, and it feels like you're kind of listening to a conversation happening near you, like maybe on a television, and I just love the acting. And even when like the show gets intense, I don't find myself taken out of it, especially since the fact that they like acknowledge that they're like an audio-based story, because the show we're listening to audio recordings happening, because the characters have a whole thing about like, we have to record everything that's happening, not for like spooky scary reasons, despite the fact that although it's a sci-fi mystery show, it does dwell into some horror topics. It like, they're just like, this is just the thing, because one of the main characters is an archivist. His name is Gordon. I love him. He's my favorite. He deserves so many good things. But the Gordon rant can wait, because I need to talk about just the acting in the show, just the way it's done. It's so natural. Like, even for characters who, like, I'm like, you're an awful person and I don't like you, like, it's so fun having them on screen. You got, like, characters who just, like, have incredibly creative insults rather than, like, you know, tell somebody to go fuck off or whatnot. And I love that. I like that a show could do that. My dog just came by to visit me. She was like, I heard you talking about Red Valley. Hi. Anyway, and yeah, they just get funny with each other. Like, the characters just get super funny with each other. It's so much fun to just listen to them have, like, random, ridiculous discussions. Like, there was, like, one part where, like, Gordon and Warren were talking about something serious that's related to spoilers, so I won't say. And then they just go into, like, a stupid question of, like, would you rather have this stupid thing happen or this stupid thing happen? Like, right at the very end, and it's just so funny. The show isn't very much of a comedy podcast, but its comedy is done so well. And, like, I find myself laughing as much as I find myself wanting to cry. Yeah. It's just horrible things happen to the characters in the show. So many horrible things. I would die for Gordon Porlock. I love him. He needs nice things to happen to him. And if this show, if being into this show and bringing back me mentioning the Magnus Archives earlier, has taught me anything, is that if I get too attached to an archivist character, all I get to do is just suffer for it. So thanks for that, both Jonathan writers of the show. I enjoy it very much. Thanks for hurting me. And the other thing I have to talk about, speaking of the writers, the mystery for this show is just so good. It's so good. It keeps you on your toes. They managed to put in plot twists without putting in too many plot twists to keep the storyline interesting. So, like, at the end of season 1, you're like, oh, so they figured out the mystery to Red Valley. Okay, that's cool. Guess it's the end of the show. And then they include another mystery, and it's like, hold up, wait a second, what the heck is this about? And then you get into season 2, and they start going into, like, more of the mystery, like, solving the mystery for that mystery, and it's more like, oh, okay, so now I know what this is about. Gotcha, okay, understood. But then you get to the end of season 2, and although it's not like, oh, here's a new mystery, it's just more of just like, oh boy, season 3 is gonna have surprises, ain't it? Because of the previous mysteries that us, the audience, had to solve, because there's reasons why I can't explain why there's no mystery for season 3. Or at least there's a mystery for season 3, but not like in the way that the end of season 1 presents it. And it's just, it's so good. It always keeps you on your toes. I love it. I love it. And of course, you know, me being a queer podcast listener loves it when shows have queer podcast characters. And it does something that the Silversus does, I also think Red Valley does, especially for having a sweary character in it who likes to insult people constantly with very creative swears. It has queer characters who present the fact that they're queer very naturally and organically. Just like, you know, once again, without making it the thing when it doesn't need to be a thing, if the story, like, seemingly doesn't need a call for it. But, like, they don't also, like, have, like, your sweary, insulty character go, like, what if I just, like, am homophobic to you? So that's really nice. It's like, it's like, come on, you can be more creative than saying a slur. And this guy's just like, well, oh boy, don't I have a lovely triage of insults to call you that aren't slurs. And it's like, we love you for that, even though you're a horrible person. It does, however, I did say that this is a sci-fi mystery podcast, but it does go into, like, some horror aspects, especially if you are incredibly squish against, like, or you have, like, just incredibly against, like, anything with unethical, fucked up capitalismness of it, because this show has a lot of, like, medical malpractice, like, unethical science experiments, psychological torture, it's got, like, emotional abuse, it's got, like, regular, like, it's got, like, gun violence in it, it's got a bunch of stuff in it. I won't say everything's, like, rampant throughout the show, but because the series is so short, because the first season's, like, 6 episodes and the second's only, like, 8, it's kind of worth noting some of the bigger stuff that happens in it, only because, like, that could come out of you anywhere. But the show does have some content warnings on their website, and they have, like, a link to it in their notes to, like, transcripts and content warnings and all that. So you can go look at those if you need that really badly. And I suggest it, because some of the violence and stuff in the show kind of, like, I was like, oh god, that's, like, a bit graphic. But not so much graphic than, like, other shows I listen to with a lot of, like, on-screen violence, like The Silversus or Malevolent. So it's not, like, overly over the top, but it definitely is, like, if you're like me and you go to Red Valley without knowing what to expect, it does surprise you. But yeah, Overall, I really wish I listened to this show sooner, and Jonathan and Alan have a way of writing natural-sounding dialogue that does not sound sitcom-ish. I know I said that this definitely goes into comedy a lot, but it doesn't feel like a sitcom. Like, it doesn't feel like it's like a comedy podcast being like, ooh, but we're gonna get edgy at some points. Like, it's a very well-written show with very well-written characters that gets into some, like, very complex emotional conversations. And I really enjoy that for such a short stories. And despite the horrible things that happens, it remains to be funny without making the horrible things that happen seem like a joke. Even if sometimes, like, they'll be like, here's this horrible thing that happened. It's kind of funny, but we're awful people for laughing at it. Even if it has, like, nothing to do with, like, the actual horrible things happening at that moment. Sometimes they'll laugh about horrible things and then be like, oh, we're probably going to go to hell for this. And it definitely manages to raise the stakes in the storyline without making it feel too much. Like, it doesn't go straight from, like, oh, if I don't do this thing, I'm going to lose this promotion I'm looking for, straight to, hey, the world is ending unless we can stop it. It very much just kind of, like, raises the stakes in a way that feels natural without feeling like, how the hell did we get to this point? And I think that's just really nice. And my final thoughts about the show is I very much, hey, Jonathan, Alan, I'm whispering in your ear, I very much would like an episode where Gordon has nice things happen to him for one day, please. Please. He's my favorite character. I want nice things. I am kindly asking you. I also appreciate the fact that you guys write such good characters, and Gordon Porlock is great, and he deserves nice things, pretty please. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm gonna link to their website, obviously. I actually did not look up beforehand if they have a Patreon, and if they do have a Patreon, I'll link it. If they don't, then it's just not gonna be linked, but I will check that out. And as always, if you have a suggestion for a podcast I should listen to, feel free to leave a suggestion and I will bookmark it. Maybe it'll go up, if it's already bookmarked, it might go up to my listen to sooner list. It might not. Who knows? And also, my socials are always linked down below, so if you want to look at my social medias and you want to be like, whoa, this is what this person gets to besides listening to podcasts all the time, you can. I've been talking way too much about Elden Ring online because I have an issue with playing video games at the moment. So close to art fight. So yeah, that's it. Goodbye. And please give the show a listen because I was really pleasantly surprised with how much I liked it, and I hope a lot of other people, if they listen to this and are like, I want to go watch this show. I want to go listen to this show right now. Listen to it and are just the same as I was when I first listened to it. That'd be really nice. The creators of the show obviously worked super, super hard on it, and it really shows, so that would be great. Okay, that's all. Goodbye.